Hello everybody and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Balthazar.
And today, we're in the same room again. We lied to you when we said it was going to be like a month.
Yeah, that was a fib.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an untrue. But welcome to the recap of the first K-State football game of the year, which was K-State against South Dakota, the Coyotes. And we're just going to go ahead and go straight down the list, not going to bounce around anything, except for one thing. And that is this episode in its entirety is being brought to you by the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, where we have a promo code for $5 off of such designs such as Doomtang Clan, which is officially approved by the Tang staff, by the way, so you kind of have to get it. And then play Sandstorm Cowards and Neon Alleycats. If you use the code KOFFACATS, that's KOFFACATS, at Aggieville Alleycats, the merch store. You can find that link in our Twitter bio as well as the Spotify bio. You get $5 off your entire purchase. And this will be going on for a limited time, so please get in the code as soon as possible. Now, the first thing I actually wanted to talk about, I forgot to put it on the outline, but I feel like it's something that we both are pretty equipped to talk about. It's the atmosphere. This was actually a sellout game, even though there was going to be questions about whether or not it would be. So, what did you think of the atmosphere?
It was one of the better atmospheres of the last few years, I felt like. I feel like I was cheated from this great atmosphere because the student section was excellent. It was packed. I got into the stadium about an hour before kick, and I was just doing a lap around the stadium. And when we were on the west side, the two main sections were already completely full by the time we were on the other side. So an hour before kick, people were already there. It was fairly warm, and so it was nice dedication. And then the stadium was completely full by the time the game started. It was loud. Everybody was into it. Obviously, that waned as it went, just because it was. I mean, we controlled the entire game. We got up on the first play. 5 minutes in, we were up 2 scores, and we coasted from there. Really,
yeah.
But the atmosphere was excellent, especially for a season opener against FCS team. Well beyond my expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't have anything that happened to, suck the soul out of the stadium.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good day for not only atmosphere-wise, but after the sun went down, it was a pretty good day weather-wise, too.
Yes, yeah. It was a night and day difference the second that the sun
went quite literally.
Yes. Which... it's really nice when you're down the lower bowl, but you always feel for the people on the upper deck that are in the sun until 7:30.
Yeah,
it's been an extra hour in the sun. That gets pretty warm pretty quick, and that really drains the life out of you as well, sitting in the sun for a while. But it wasn't too bad. The sun was gone from where we were sitting by. It was barely halfway through the first quarter. Honestly, it didn't take that long at all. But
granted, the first quarter did last a long time.
That was a very, very long first quarter. A lot of media breaks just because we were scoring a lot, that's a good problem to have. And generally took a lot of drops as well, so the clock was stopping too. But
Yep. But now we can go into the actual on-the-field factors. And the first thing to note is there's been a lot of concern about the offense, both on Twitter and on message boards. And basically the best analogy that I can come up with for how the offensive play calling was the offensive play calling was just basically a scoop of vanilla ice cream on untoasted white bread. It was the most vanilla, inoffensive, normal offense that you possibly could have run. Pretty standard running concepts. We had our sweep. We had our signature sweep going in with the center pulling to the outside. We had duo. We had a little bit of inside zone. We had the Kyle Shanahan play, as I call it, which is just the boot. That's basically a levels concept. And then we had 1 or 2 deep shots, and one of them was a really good ball by Adrian Martinez, but it just unfortunately wasn't caught by Phillip Brooks. But I understand why people are concerned, and we will talk about that a bit later, but it has to be taken with that this offensive play calling, the play sheet that they had was basically maybe 3 to 5% of the actual playbook.
Yeah, that was the sense I got just from watching, that we really weren't taking a lot of risks, it seemed like, which was alluded to by the players and coaches afterwards as well. Of course, they're going to say that, but I do kind of believe them because that was the sentiment that we had during the game as well.
Yeah.
And it was, we were taking a lot of stuff underneath. South Dakota was playing prevent defense for the most part, and also the running game was just working. And I take Colin Klein as the type of play caller to take what he can get. And if they're going to give us underneath stuff and 7 yards per carry, then I imagine Colin Klein's going to be just fine with that.
Yeah.
And then also, this kind of felt like, and Ace and I were talking about this before the episode started, this felt like a Bill Snyder opening game more than a Chris Kleiman opening game, where the playbook is extremely limited and it's really focused on just doing a few things really, really well, and just getting out ahead quickly. And I imagine there's going to be a lot more that we see play calling wise against Missouri, some more creative stuff. Because, I mean, we really didn't do much creative at all. And like you said, the one time we took a really big shot downfield was a really nice throw, but just wasn't quite hauled in by Phillip Brooks, and that would have doubled the passing output for the game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Outside of that, we kind of alluded to it. Perhaps as a consequence of the limited playbook, the passing game in general left a lot to be desired. And when talked to after the game, Chris Kleiman said, yeah, the passing game didn't really catch its footing. And then Adrian Martinez said he was just taking what the defense was giving him, which, there are a couple of times where Adrian Martinez notably missed a couple of shots that he could have taken. If he throws, the one ball that I'm thinking of is on the Kyle Shanahan play, as I call it. There was an opportunity to hit Cade Warner on the comeback on that route. There was an opportunity to hit, I think it was Phillip Brooks up the seam at one point. If he basically just throws it as the alert to that, he just gets the ball, throws it up the seam. There's probably opportunities where he could have thrown the ball a little bit further downfield, but hey, he didn't need to. So, if he didn't need to, I'm not going to complain about it too much. It's just something that I'm not concerned about, but I'm watching.
Yeah, and that's my thing with it too, is it really seemed like the whole game plan was pretty much to just limit mistakes at the end of the day, because I think that it was pretty obvious that K-State was far more talented than South Dakota, and they didn't really feel a need to tip their hand, which, I mean, I would have liked to see more offensive creativity in the passing game and maybe a bit more ambition in that side of the game, but I'm not going to let it eat at me or anything like that until we continue to see that against higher quality competition over the next 3 games.
If I see that again, I'm going to be concerned. Yeah,
Missouri, if we continue to struggle as much as we did, then yeah, that would be pretty concerning. I mean, I'd like to see at least 200 passing yards against Missouri, and Adrian only had 56 or 53 in this game, so it's a little concerning thus far. But he was efficient. He was 11 for 15. There's a couple drops in there, especially the deep ball to Phillip Brooks. He did get sacked a few times. Granted, one of them was definitely not his fault.
No, he got blown up on a slot pressure, which KT didn't see, but that was KT's one big mistake, which, fine.
That only one issue there. But, yeah, Adrian, he was efficient. Pretty solid running the ball. Didn't really make a notably bad throw, I would say. Just would like to see more. But then again, the run game was working incredibly well. As efficient as it was. And at the end of the day, a lot of the discourse around this game makes it sound as if it was close. We won 34-0. And I think a lot of it's just frustration that we didn't do more, because we definitely could have.
Yeah.
And the offense still only did get 27 points. So you'd like to see more. But again, that is also getting a little bit greedy, because the team did play well as a whole, and they won, and they dominated in the way that they should have. They could have easily put up 50 in this game. But I mean, the backups were in pretty quickly.
Yeah, like in halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, the defense was starting to rotate pretty heavily by the second quarter.
Yeah.
So it's tough to complain too much without sounding spoiled.
Yeah.
But it is still worth talking about some of the major issues, which granted, there were not many issues. We're just covering them heavily here at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because most of what happened in this game was good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most of this game can be very much viewed as positive. Speaking of big positive, the defense was absolutely lights out, and they've notably made progress schematically to my eyes, because we actually, for the first time that I can truly remember, we started running defensive line stunts, which the one that comes to mind is the Brendan Mott sack, where he was running an end over, where basically D. Hentz takes on a double team block, pushes the guard to the right side towards the tackle, so that way Mott can reach over him to get a free run at the quarterback. Which, by the way, complete aside, Carson Camp's elite pocket awareness shined through. Like, he dodged maybe 3... We had 4 sacks on the day. Carson Camp dodged maybe 4 or 5 more.
Yeah, we had 4 sacks, and we had at least 2 opportunities to get another sack that I can think of off the top of my head. And there were definitely more that I'm just not thinking of, where there's no reason that we shouldn't have gotten another sack. But then, Carson Camp just had phenomenal pocket awareness, and credit to him for that. Which that was the big thing that we harped on going into this game as well, is that Carson Camp has really good pocket awareness. And he showcased that, but he still got sacked 4 times because his offensive line's not very good.
Yeah.
And also because our defensive line is really good and deeper than anticipated. Because we heard a lot about guys like Brendan Mott in the offseason, but I wasn't expecting to see him make as big an impact as he did, because he had a sack, almost had 2, all around a really good day. But yeah, the defense was absolutely phenomenal. They gave up, I think it ended up being about 230-ish yards and some change, but really that's not a really good indicator of the quality of the game they had, because, well, for one, holding a team to under 300 is already excellent, but most of those yards were garbage time, and honestly, the backup defense was still holding their own, because they held the shutout pretty late, and they got about a third of their yards on the final drive. So, I mean, the defense top to bottom was excellent. I can't really think of many, if any, players that had a notably bad game defensively, at least to the point where I can really single somebody out and be like, they didn't meet the expectations that I set. No. Daniel Green had an unproductive day, but he didn't do anything particularly bad other than kind of whiffed on a tackle once.
He almost killed someone.
He did. He made up for it by almost decapitating a person, which it seems we had a lot of big hits in this game, but we were getting really low on them, so I think that we must have had a anti-targeting clinic this offseason, courtesy of Daniel Green.
Courtesy of Daniel Green and TJ Smith.
Yeah, to make sure that we don't get ejected. Like I really thought Kobe Savage was going to get a targeting early in the game, but it was just the latest holding call. The ref really had a sense of comedic timing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can use all sorts of superlatives for the defense as a whole, but, we can move into individuals as well that started to stand out as well.
Yeah. There were 3 true freshmen, one of which started, but all 3 got significant playing time. I was about to say minutes. I was getting the wires crossed again. Jake Clifton played a lot at linebacker. Jacob Parrish played a bit at corner, and VJ Payne was actually one of the starting safeties, which is odd because he wasn't announced as such. But the number 1 safety rotation seemed to be a blend of Drake Cheatham, Sincere Mason, and VJ Payne. Nope. Drake Cheatham, Kobe Savage, and VJ Payne.
Yes, and there were a few notable absences from the lineup. Josh Hayes did not see the field, as well as Sean Robinson. They were both injured. TJ Smith also seemingly out with injury. But yeah, Clifton, he was second in tackles for the team. He had 4 tackles, all solo. He was really impressive. I mean, first game as a true freshman, and not even just that, is that he was a summer arrival. It wasn't like he was a spring guy either. He was, 4 months ago, he was probably competing in state track for the state of Oklahoma less than 4 months ago. He was competing in state track. And yesterday, he registered tackles for Division I football team, which is really, really impressive for Jake Clifton. And I imagine he's probably going to be playing early and often. Jacob Parrish, he was getting meaningful snaps as well. A corner, he was officially credited with 1 tackle. I thought he had another, but you know what? I'll take it. He was playing some press man a few times I saw as well. Really nice to see. He's been getting a lot of love. And then VJ Payne, he started. He wasn't officially listed as a starter. They had a couple of the players that were injured listed as starters. So
like Sean Robinson.
Yeah, which maybe that has something to do with like when they filmed those videos and like when they were ruled out.
Yeah.
But yeah, VJ Payne didn't get any stats, but that's probably good because he was the cover safety. He was in on a few plays, but it was kind of gang tackle situations where, you could probably give the entire team an assisted tackle.
Yeah.
So, but he was solid from what we saw, but he didn't do anything notably bad. At least that stood out from our cursory glances.
Yep. And then Jake Rubley got some solid playing time. He went 4 for 4 with 42 yards, including a really, really nice throw to Will Swanson. I'm not reactionary. He's the backup. To the 2 people I saw saying he's going to start in week 4, stop saying that. You really have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Rubley, he did look great. He had that sweet throw to Will Swanson. Everything else was pretty standard. He had a tight window throw to RJ Garcia as well, I believe. Mm-hmm. Which, it was nice to see Jake Rubley get on the field because last year people were just constantly complaining about it, which he probably wasn't ready.
No, he wasn't ready.
But we get to see him finally, so that probably helps people subside a little. And I imagine that you throw in the backups. He's never gotten to play, so he wanted to make his name known, make some big time throws, and he looked good. And I was happy to see him play as well. He had 5 rushes for a net of 2 yards because he did take a sack as well at one point. Yeah. But all in all, he looked pretty good. He looked generally pretty comfortable as well. Made some good reads. The throw to Swanson again was really, really nice. Yeah. Will Swanson, if you had him as the leading receiver, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Why?
You did not have him. But, he leads with 2 catches for 23 yards, which is surprising, to put it mildly. Yeah. But, that was cushioned by that really nice throw from Jake Rubley. Nice to see some Will Swanson action. But, I was happy to see him. Based on Kleiman's press conference earlier this week, that's not too surprising that he was playing over Will Howard.
Or Jaron Lewis.
Yeah, or Jaron. Because Jaron's really not gotten much mention at all. And Will was listed more as the QB for if Adrian gets hurt, whereas Rubley's the blowout quarterback.
Yeah. Which, fine.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
And the last general takeaway is Giddens looks legit. DJ Giddens, the backup running back, he genuinely looks really good. And I know the main criticism was going to be, all he had to do was hit wide open holes. My counter argument to this was, I believe it was it was either his first or second carry, where it was a pulling guard, and he did something that I've seen very few college running backs know how to do. He put his hand on the back of his offensive lineman so he could feel the leverage and cut the opposite direction. So not only was he reading the linebackers, he was able to leverage his linemen. And that's something that's very, very difficult to teach. And it's something that a lot of college running backs don't do. That one play gave me more confidence in DJ Giddens as a true running back 2 and running back 1 for next year than just about any of the talk I've heard about him.
Yeah. That is the main criticism, which if you can call it one. I think it's mainly a brake pump, which is fair, I suppose, because we've only seen 6 carries of DJ Giddens, but the 6 carries we saw, I'd say, were very impressive. Yeah. And there's no reason to dilute that message, I would say. because I think people are aware that that's just not a big enough sample size to work with. But like you said, we were able to draw some inferences from his actions and technique on those plays, which was really sound. But yeah, 6 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown, 9.5 yards a carry. Yeah, you're going to take that any day. And if you're a draft evaluator, maybe you're going to care about the wide open holes. But if you're a K-State fan that wants to win games, you're really not going to care that much.
I didn't ask. I don't care.
Yeah. But yeah, really, really nice outing for DJ Giddens. The long-awaited, it feels like, even though it's really not been that long.
It's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year. But he's been hinted about. And we finally see him on the field, and he, at least so far, fits the billing.
Yeah. We've actually gone over a lot of... Now we're going to move into the stats. We've actually gone over quite a few of the stats already, but we'll go ahead and go over just them really, really quick. Adrian was 11 for 15 for 53 yards. Granted, I'm thinking of there are 3 drops that I'm thinking of. There might have been a 4th. I don't think he had any really bad misses.
I can think of at least 2, and I know there's another that I can't think of. I'm thinking of...
Sinnott, Cade, and Phillip.
I forgot the Sinnott one, but I do believe you. And then the Phillip one is the big one, because that one really hurt.
Yeah.
Just from a perception standpoint. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Then the Cade Warner drop, that's just a frustration drop. There may have been one other that, like you said, like we can't really think of. And there may have just been a miss at some point, but he was accurate in his throws. His accuracy, I think, was one of the big concerns, and decision-making was as well, which we kind of got the opposite of what people, I think, were expecting, which was an erratic quarterback and a gunslinger, where he was very measured, and I think the concern was overly measured, but we saw him. You could really see him go through reads more than a lot of K-State quarterbacks have in the past, because that's just not how they were coached in the past. And you can see him go 1, no, 2, no, 3, pass. Specifically on a throw to Sammy Wheeler in the first quarter, I believe.
Yeah.
But there was a lot to take away from Adrian's performance, while simultaneously very little, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He was a solid, sound decision maker that I think was playing within the confines of what they wanted to see, and I'm not going to base my full opinion on him off of one game. Because if we had based Skyler's season last year off of the Stanford game, then
he would have been mid.
Yeah, and he would have had a below average year, honestly. So, but he ended up having some great performances in there. So, a lot of things can change from week 1 to week 2. We'll be back here in a week, so we'll be able to make a more sound judgment against a much higher quality opponent. But
yeah,
Adrian was fine.
Yep. Then Rubley, 4 for 442. We already talked about him. Rushing, Deuce quietly collected 120 yards on 18 attempts with a touchdown. It was really quiet.
I think a lot of it is that we've just gotten so used to Deuce being this reliable 100-plus yard running back that we just didn't notice that he hit 126. Because I didn't notice till after the game when I checked the stats, and I was like, wow, Deuce had a really good game.
Yeah.
This is an excellent stat line for him. 18 carries, 126, touchdown. He had that great touchdown run where, shout out Hayden Gillum with the great pull on that play, and just absolutely eviscerated a poor defensive back that really didn't deserve it. And
wrong place, wrong time.
And then Deuce showed off one of his best skills, which is creating bad angles, because he caught a safety in a really tough spot, and he made the most of that opportunity and was able to pretty much waltz in untouched for a 39-yard touchdown. Even though he did a lot of the heavy lifting there, he still wasn't touched.
Yeah.
But yeah, quietly a really, really good game on the ground for Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah. We already talked about Giddens. He was 6 for 57.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Martinez was 13 for 39. He had 18 yards of loss from sack yardage.
Mm-hmm.
But then receiving, there's no one really notable here. Will Swanson, 2 for 23. RJ Garcia had 1 catch from Jake Rubley. He was 1 for 17. Leek Knowles, 3 for 14. Ben Sinnott, 2 for 12. Sammy Wheeler, 1 for 10. Cade Warner, 3 for 10. Christian Moore, shout out Christian Moore, 1 for 4. DJ Giddens, 1 for 3. Deuce Vaughn, 1 for 2. Phillip Brooks with the drop.
Yeah. The only big notable things here are the usage of Will Swanson and then the usage of Ben Sinnott. And that Ben Sinnott, we talked about preseason how we thought he would be kind of an H-back type of guy, and he really is just being used as a tight end.
He's used as everything.
Yeah, like at least thus far, he's been primarily tight end, and he can play about any backfield position that's not quarterback or running back.
Yeah.
And he's got incredible positional versatility. So I was happy to see Ben Sinnott get some targets on some pretty easy routes, just some stuff over the middle, quick little drop-offs. And Christian Moore had a nice play, and then he had another one that was called back due to a penalty, I think, where he got like 10 yards and fought really hard for those yards.
Yeah, that was a hold.
Mm-hmm. But he had a quality game, getting the start at fullback over Jax Deneen, who I would imagine is probably a little banged up since he's not playing. But Christian Moore looks solid.
Yeah, Christian Moore looks real good.
Yeah, in his outing. Oh, and then the one thing we didn't mention was the Malik Knowles 75-yard touchdown to start the season. My prediction in the Bosco's Boys comments was very close. Technically incorrect. I will not claim victory, but I do just want to like say I was close because I had kick return touchdown to open the year, and I was one play off. But
you got the player right.
I did get the player right, and it was a long touchdown. This wasn't a kick return; it was just a jet sweep, which I suppose I should have thought about considering how many of those sort of plays he has in his career, it seems like.
Yeah.
Would you think the team would be ready for Malik Knowles' jet sweep play one, considering that it seems like a lot of times we do that, it ends up being a 70-yard touchdown, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, you can take defensive stats.
Yeah, defensively, not really like a big one-off standout statistically speaking. Austin Moore led the way in tackling with 3 tackles and half a tackle for loss. Jake Clifton quietly was second in tackling, like we mentioned earlier. The true freshman, I really like that he's making a splash early, and it seems like Kleiman is really not too concerned about red shirts at this point in the era of the transfer portal. He's playing guys early and often to get them to stick around.
Yeah.
4 tackles for Clifton. Julius Brents had 3 tackles, including a big hit in the first quarter.
The speed. If Brents didn't get him, Khalid Duke would have.
Yeah, somebody was going to take that guy's head off one way or another. Echo had 3 tackles. Desmond Purnell, he had 3 tackles and half a tackle for loss, filling in along with Khalid Duke for the injured Sean Robinson. So Desmond Purnell came in as a safety, now is in that Sam linebacker role. He played to the quality that I think they wanted Wayne Jones to be at. And he fits that mold, but he did it really well. And I was pleasantly surprised. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, he was just absolutely dominating off the edge. 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a forced fumble. He should have had probably another sack in there at some point, but Carson Camp is really good at avoiding that.
Yeah.
Eli Huggins had a really nice day as well. 3 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and a really, really nice sack.
Where he splits a double team instantly with a swim move.
The swim move was absolutely disgusting on that play. His snap jump was really great. Huggins, it's so big to have him back this year. Kobe Savage had 2 tackles, a tackle for loss, and was flying all over the field. He had another big hit that we thought was going to get called for targeting, but it was just a really late hold. And he looked really, really good. There's a reason he was being raved about all offseason, and it was great to see him flying around the field the way that he did with the confidence that he had. And going forward, he's going to be something to keep an eye on. Sincere Mason, he's back from some sort of knee injury at the end of last year from the West Virginia game, and he had a big interception in the first quarter, and it was really nice to see him flying around. He looked really smooth. He's not lost a step.
No.
And then from this point on, we're starting to get into more walk-ons and depth guys with a couple of exceptions. Trey Krause, walk-on. He had 2 tackles. He was getting a lot of playing time late. Same for Matthew Mashmeyer. Then Hunter Henry. He was getting some more relevant minutes and rotation at safety.
Yeah.
I'd imagine we see less of him once Josh Hayes and TJ Smith are back, but we may still see him a little bit more. Brendan Mott, like we said earlier, he had one play that really stood out where he had a stunt and got a big sack of Carson Camp, and he about had another sack later in the game, but Carson Camp was doing Carson Camp things and not being very fast, but evading everybody though. Yeah. And, but Brendan Mott, he was getting some shout outs throughout fall camp, and we saw why pretty early on. And a shout out to Robert Hentz on that sack for Brendan Mott, really taking one for the team there.
Yeah.
Bo Palmer, backup linebacker, had 2 tackles. Jalen Pickle, he had 1.5 tackles for loss and a sack.
As well as a batted ball.
Yeah, and a batted ball as well. I almost forgot to mention that. Thank you. Yeah. Then Uso Seumalo.
The man way too fast for his size.
An absolute behemoth. Ace and I were going back and looking at his high school huddle tape, and there's a play where he's like 6'3", probably 330 in those highlights, and
he's playing 8-man.
Yeah, they're playing 8-man Hawaiian football, and he like goes in as Wildcat quarterback and gets like a 60-yard touchdown run where he not only runs over people but also actively outruns a lot of defensive backs, and that's absolutely horrifying. And he looked just as fast. He ran somebody down last night, and he looked incredibly powerful. When he gets more of the technical stuff figured out and a little bit more strength work, he's going to be an absolute menace in the middle. So he's got a little bit more development to do, but I was happy to see him. Then Jacob Parrish, another true freshman corner, registered a tackle. Drake Cheatham, he started at safety, and he had a tackle. Nearly had a great pick, which is registered as a PBU instead, but he nearly picked one off. Cleve Duke, he looked really good compared to, I think, what everybody was expecting. He had a tackle, but he was flying all over the field for the most part and had some pretty good pass rush as well. Never got home, but he did get some pressures and was getting close, but never quite got there. Then the Kendra Steiger, random JUCO transfer that came out of nowhere that just exists on the team now. He had a tackle, played a little bit. Jace Friesen, the long snapper.
Yeah. The rest of these we can probably just say like, hey, all these had 1 tackle each.
Yeah.
Jace Friesen, Cody Stufflebean, Nick Allen, Damian Ilalio, Cartez Crook-Jones. Nate Matlick had a tackle for loss. I don't know why Malik Knowles is here.
Seth Porter had the punt block, which going back, I guess Desmond Purnell did have
a touchdown.
He did have the blocked punt return touchdown. So, all in all, really, really great performance beyond just the stats for the defense. Guys that stood out were guys like Kobe Savage and Austin Moore. Looked great. Every defensive lineman really, and the 1 through 2 line looked great. And when we played a lot of guys, Cody Selfabini was getting some meaningful snaps as well. He was in as early as the second quarter, I believe.
Yeah.
Which, granted, we started rotating really, really early to get to the deeper guys. But it was, all in all, really, really, it was a banner day for the defense. They looked very cohesive. They started this year as strongly as they ended last season.
Yeah, and started last season.
They did start really well. Although they were even more shorthanded to start the year here.
Yeah.
And they were last year.
Yeah. So now we can start going into game day grades. These we'll try and keep a little shorter in the interest of time. Plus, we've already talked about the majority of them through stats. If you don't know what game day grades are, we go through every single position group, including the offensive and defensive coordinators, giving them a grade from A+ to F. A+ meaning they basically single-handedly won us the game, and F meaning they almost single-handedly lost us the game. So we're going to start with the most important position on the field on any football team, and that is the quarterback. Now, you mentioned us earlier being a little bit critical of Adrian Martinez and how conservative he was. To me, it's not necessarily that he was conservative, it's that I saw what he missed. Like, there were opportunities for him to throw the ball a bit further downfield, whether it be in a tighter window or not. And he didn't have a bad day. He had an efficient day. He had a perfectly fine day. To me, he gets a C- because of the opportunities, the yards he left out on the field.
I gave him a C. Just because I felt like he was okay. The Phillips drop obviously isn't on him, and he was hitting receivers pretty well when he was throwing the ball. But like you said, he was missing a lot of open guys, and I can't in good conscience give him a higher grade, really.
Yeah.
I consider it a C+. He was effective on the ground as well. He had a rushing touchdown, and managed the game, if nothing else. But he didn't do much. There were a few opportunities he had to do more, but he didn't take them. It seemed like he didn't want to turn the ball over. But yeah, he was all right, but nothing better than a C.
Yeah. Running backs, this one's pretty simple. A.
Yeah, A for me as well. Both Deuce and DJ were great. Nothing more to say there, really.
Yeah. Wide receivers, to me, got a C+, because at times they did have trouble separating, which, again, maybe that's why Adrian Martinez, who's going through his reads a little bit fast, saw they didn't get instant separation, moved on to the next read. But even then, they didn't have an awful day. They didn't have a great day. But honestly, this is one of the weird times where it came down to blocking, and the wide receivers had a really good blocking day. So I'm going to end up giving them just a flat C, bang average.
I gave them a B-. They did block well, and they were getting decent separation. There were a few plays where Adrian should have pulled the trigger, and he didn't. And there were a couple of drops in there. Cade and Phillip come to mind. But beyond that, Malik, he did catch the ball pretty well. Just didn't have a lot of yardage. And other than that, it was pretty uneventful, but they did block well. And they were getting open, but they just didn't have a ton of production. So I gave him a B-. But I'm not super strong on that grade.
Yeah. Next up, tight ends, fullbacks. I gave them an A-, not only because they blocked really well, but you actually saw a lot of them. You saw a lot of Sammy Wheeler, saw a lot of Will Swanson, saw a lot of Ben Sinnott, saw a lot of Christian Moore. All of them did very well, and maybe they were kind of stealing a little bit from the wide receivers just because of how big of personnel we were playing. Because even though we would flex out our tight ends and technically make it 3 wide, we had a lot of bigger personnel on the field today. I ended up giving them an A-.
I gave him an A- as well. They all played well from what we saw. Would have liked to see Jax, but again, he's probably hurt. Sammy was solid in what he showed. Ben Sinnott looked really good. And Christian Moore was nice to see as well. So A- for me. They all blocked well. They didn't have any notable drops from what I recall. But I liked what they showed in their action.
Yeah. Offensive line. There are only like 2 things that I have to complain about. One is not Christian Moore. KT Leviston missing slot pressure and getting Adrian Martinez eviscerated, which caused the forced fumble on the day. And also the snaps from Gilly were a little bit off sometimes. But those are my only real complaints, and they had an excellent day otherwise. Those are just the only 2 things keeping them from getting an A+. I gave them an A.
Yeah, same thing for me, where they did have a few minor errors that take them down just a little. KT missing that, I mean, understandable mistake, but that's something that you learn from and don't do again. If it continues, it will become a bigger issue. But that was really his only mistake on the day that I recall. Yeah. Other than that, he was really quite solid. And then, a few off snaps from Gillum. But other than that, an A grade for me as well.
Yep. Now moving on to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, what can you say? Even if you're an analytics guy, even if you're a film guy, there is no way that this performance doesn't get them an A+.
Yeah, A+ for me as well. They dominated. That was one of the big matchups that we were going to be watching going into this game was K-State's defensive line versus South Dakota's offensive line, and went exactly as we thought it would, which was really well for K-State. Yeah. And they get an A+ from me. Phenomenal performance.
Yep. Linebackers, not much to say. They did well. I gave them an A.
I gave them an A as well. There were no notable bad performances. Everybody, at the very least, wasn't visible, which is good. And so Jake Clifton was really nice. Daniel Green did well in his action. Austin Moore led the way in tackles, which is impressive. And then Desmond Purnell and Khalid Duke both held down the fort at Sam while we wait for Sean Robinson to get healthy.
Yep. Next up is defensive backs, a room that had a lot of rotation. And this was another one where they were really stingy, didn't give up many opportunities unless it was quick game or slant routes where really there wasn't much they could do because it gets reflected onto the linebackers. I don't hold either of them responsible for that because A, it was garbage time when it started happening, and B, they had such a great game otherwise. I gave the defensive backs an A.
I gave them an A too. They were all around really great, and that's while being a little shorthanded in the safety room. So they did give up a few easy things, but it's tough to nick them on that really, just because it is easy stuff. It's really hard to cover. But an A grade for me, all around, really impressive.
Yeah. Now we can go into the coordinators. The first one is Colin Klein. And I will say I gave him this grade with the caveat of I know the offense was meant to be vanilla. If this was just like a straight up, this is all I think Colin Klein could do, and this is what I thought the entire playbook was, he'd probably get like a D-. But with the caveat of this was a very limited playbook, with the plays that he permitted to be run, I ended up giving him a B-, just because, it was just really, this is one of the few times that I've been very tempted to give an incomplete grade, but he was fine with the limited playbook, B-.
Yeah, I gave a B, but again, if this wasn't his first game and it was like week 7 or 8, this would probably be like a D or a D+, because we still did do well on the ground, but we just didn't do anything creative through the air. But first full game with a full off season of preparation as the full offensive coordinator and play caller, I'll give him a B, but if this is what we are going to be seeing every week, then I'll start to get worried, but I don't think that we should expect this to be the offense every week. At least that's my impression. But yeah, for now it's a B.
Yep. And then the final one is the Clandy Man, Joe Clanderman, the defensive coordinator. And I'm not going to go as far as to call this a masterclass, but he had a really, really amazing game. Only thing keeping him from an A+ for me is, well, honestly, just not really on him last drive, pretty much. Last couple drives, I'd still like to see him maybe get a little bit more. No, whatever. Screw it. A+.
I gave him an A+ too. Because, I just couldn't find a way to give him a lower grade.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it.
Yeah, I was sitting there like, did he get an A+? But like, you sit there and you're like, South Dakota, they had 270 yards of offense, and they were under 200 until the final drive. So it's really hard to be like upset with him in any fashion, especially when in the first half they had like 70 yards at halftime or something like that. This was utter suffocation from the defense, and the only reason South Dakota really ever got any air was just because they we were pretty much called off the dogs by the mid-third quarter, and it was coasting from there, and it was mainly rotational guys from then on too. And we were rotating pretty early as well, so A+ for me for Clanderman. He really called a great game, had a great scheme.
Yep. So that's game day grades. Now we can start doing, this is actually going to be new, where we always talked about the stories going into the game and then never talked about them again. So this year we're actually going to talk about them. So the first question we asked was, does Adrian play a clean game? I feel like the monkey's paw kind of curled on that one.
Yeah.
Yes, he did play a clean game.
Yeah, he did. He did have the fumble, but I'm really not going to put that on him because that was just a missed blindside block from KT Leviston. I think anybody fumbles there.
Yeah.
Because that's just a clean full speed slot blitz. Like, you're not going to get those often. So, I'm not too upset with Adrian for that. And we kept the ball too. KT actually picked it up and ran a little. But yeah, no turnovers.
Yeah. The next story was, do we use his mobility more or less? Actually, more.
Yeah, I was surprised with how many designed quarterback runs we had for Adrian. I figured it would be in the 3 to 5, maybe 6 range. And not all of them were designed, but he did run more than I expected him to. He ended up with 13 carries. Granted, 4 of those were sacks, but that's still 9 runs where he either pulled it down and ran or was a read option. So he definitely more mobile than I was expecting.
Yeah. The next question was, does Klein's offense look in sorts? Vanilla, but in sorts, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, especially in the running game. The running game was a well-oiled machine, and passing game, they weren't taking many risks, but they didn't look necessarily out of sorts, I'd say. So, yeah, I suppose with a bit of an asterisk to where if this was like a mid-season game, I'd be more frustrated, but it was fine.
Yep. Who starts at each of the given safety positions? Honestly, it's not a relevant question because of how much they rotated, but it was VJ Payne, Kobe Savage, and Drake Cheatham.
Yeah, and we normally see Josh Hayes at that other spot other than VJ Payne, but injury keeps him out. So a little bit of an asterisk there. But other than that, I think that would have hit our prediction on the head from earlier in the summer. But yeah, interesting. VJ gets the nod there over others, but good for VJ still.
Yep. Do we stay healthy after this game? Taylor Poitier got hurt. No word on if it's long term, but generally yes.
Yeah, for the most part, we were still healthy. Poitier, any indicators we can take were that he walked off under his own power for the most part, it seemed like. Really, really, really hoping that it's not a long-term injury. Just because I after missing all of last year and getting a lot of hype coming into this year, that would really, really suck for him and for the offensive line as a whole. If he were unable to fight through, or if it was just something that required surgery. So hopefully he's able to come back sooner rather than later, because I was really looking forward to watching him this year because he's a really great offensive lineman. But other than that, pretty clean.
Yeah. Does the new offensive line look cohesive? Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. KT missed one block. Other than that, I thought he was surprisingly good at left tackle.
Duffy avoided any Duffy moments.
Yeah, Duffy did not have a notable Duffy moment, which was really nice. Good for you, Duffy. And Gillum had a couple of snaps that were off, but other than that, he was also very impressive. Yeah. And we rotated a lot as well. Andrew Langang, he was playing quite well.
Sam Hecht got in.
Yeah, Sam Hecht was playing several snaps. Hadley Panzer was playing quite a bit too. Everybody that got on the field for the O-line, it seemed like they were doing quite well. Not many people were getting destroyed. Carver Willis played a little bit and didn't do great, but other than that, really everybody else was doing pretty solid, I thought.
Yep. How many touches does Deuce get this game? He ended up getting 19 registered.
Yep. 18 carries, 1 catch. Would like to see a little bit more usage in the passing game, but I think we're going to see more of that over the rest of the season, but there just wasn't a reason really in this game to put him at much more risk. I think after his long touchdown run, he was basically retired.
Yeah. Yeah, he was told that he didn't have to do anything for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So then we get to talk about our MVPs. We're going to go ahead and mention the fact that none of our picks for MVP from the preview show were right. Because both of our offensive MVP picks were Adrian Martinez. Mine defensively was Felix, and yours.
Daniel Green was my pick defensively. And he had 1 tackle, so definitely not the MVP.
Yeah. So I think the offensive MVP, this is cheating. I don't care. It's the offensive line.
That's fair. It really is. I'm going to say Deuce just because he did have that big explosive play. Offensive line is a totally fine pick. I just didn't want to take yours there. But I mean, because the O-line was really great for the most part. But I don't know. I guess if I could pick a room, I'd say running backs, but I'm not going to do that. Deuce Vaughn for me.
Yeah. Then defensively, almost has to be Kobe Savage to me. Not only because of his stats, but because of the other pick that I was debating was actually Sincere Mason because of the pick. But just with every single play that you saw, Kobe Savage was within 2 or 3 yards of it. So if he didn't make the play, he was about to.
Yeah, he was really impressive. I'm picking him too, so I am taking your pick here, I guess. But he was really impressive to me. And we already had high hopes for him, and I'd say that he surpassed them, even though he only had, he only had 2 tackles. That doesn't really matter, honestly, to me. He was really, really impressive, I thought. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play more. He's a very active player. So, Kobe Savage, defensive MVP for me.
Yep. And now we can go into the general takeaways we had from this game. And the first and foremost one is we saw a very, very different Adrian Martinez. We saw an Adrian Martinez who is very conservative today. I wonder if that continues. And the reason, this is going to be a controversial take, and this might not be something that a lot of people would share. If the alternative is the Nebraska Adrian Martinez, where he's a gunslinger, I almost certainly would take that over a hyper-conservative Adrian Martinez, because this is a type of defense that I think could eat turnovers if it means that we're going to get some more explosive plays. But obviously there's going to be something in the middle. It's not a binary there, but Adrian Martinez was very conservative today.
Yeah, that was very surprising. Especially just the degree. I figured that we'd see something resembling a more conservative and mature version of Adrian Martinez, but I was not expecting it to the degree that we saw, where he only took the one deep shot. And again, that tends to make me believe that they were really holding back, especially because we said it earlier. I mean, there was a lot of points in time where there was a guy open downfield, and Adrian Martinez, it is not in his wiring to pass up a downfield open man.
Yeah.
So you have to think that there was something in the game plan that they wanted to keep away.
Sandbag.
Yeah, we might be overthinking it.
We may be sandbagging.
Yeah.
That's not that's not impossible.
Yeah, but regardless, for this game in a vacuum, it was surprising to see him not take more chances. But at the end of the day, it's fine. He didn't really need to take those chances. We won 34-0. So I'm not going to, be upset about that in any stretch of the imagination. So
next big takeaway is our defense is going to be legit.
Yeah.
And schematically, they're getting more mature, which both are insane signs. Because I said it last year that I think the one that we stole this scheme from was actually Iowa State, just because of how similarly the two units played. This year we started working in a little bit more of what Oklahoma State did, different types of blitzing and different types of stunts from the defensive line, which is a sign of schematic maturity, which if we're getting better with this scheme, I think it's going to be a very deadly defense.
Yes. This is probably going to be a defensive-minded team, first and foremost, with a complementary offense, which I am okay with, because if we can get a special teams or defensive score roughly every game, then the offense is going to be fine doing what it did today.
Yeah.
Which, if you're putting out high 20s, then you can make it work. But obviously, I'd like to see more from the offense. Just, again, backups were in pretty early, so it's tough to make a verdict there. But yeah, the defense was really, really, really good, especially in the first half when they were really going all out. Those first few series, they were just absolutely dominant in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Once we started rotating out the starters, they relaxed a little bit, but of course they did. So, but yeah, really impressed with the defense.
Yep. Next takeaway, this true freshman defensive class has the potential to be absolutely nuts, because we saw 3 true freshman starters, and the one with the highest ceiling we didn't even see. Because I still believe that Tobio is the one with the highest ceiling. He's just the one that probably needed to marinate the most. But seeing Jake Clifton, Jacob Parrish, and VJ Payne, all of which have J in the first name, Toby didn't. Maybe that's the key. But all of them had amazing days for true freshmen.
Yeah. VJ starting. He was in on the first snap. Jake Clifton was rotating in early and often. Yeah, and then Jacob Parrish, we saw quite a bit of him too. They all played meaningful snaps, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I wasn't expecting to see them as early. Granted, VJ was a bit more out of necessity for his starting,
yeah.
But I was very happy with that. Those guys are going to be stalwarts of the defense and core parts of the defense's success in the coming years, I would say. But then again, Tobio is still waiting in the wings. Hopefully we can expect to see more of him maybe later in the season. But he also is probably on a redshirt trajectory. So we'll see.
Yep. Then Katori Leviston at left tackle worked fine. Didn't embarrass himself. Actually played quite well except for the one play.
Yeah, he had quite a few highlight plays where he would really just
dunking on people.
Just really embarrass somebody. He only had the one real mess up, and it was a big mess up. But that is something that is coachable.
Yeah.
That's just something that he missed. And some of that probably comes from last year he was playing interior the whole time. So it's something that can be worked around. If it continues, then I'll be concerned. But he surpassed my expectations for week 1.
Absolutely. Next one is no matter who's at safety, they're all solid.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked everybody that we saw on the field at safety.
Nikendre Steiger.
Yeah, Nikendre Steiger actually was quite good. And he's somebody who I don't even think we ever even mentioned on the show because he had a completely unceremonious addition
to the squad. Commit.
Yeah, he really was. He kind of just showed up after I'm forgetting his name from Arizona, Javion Carr. Yeah, just
didn't show up.
Just elected to not be on the team. It was a really, really impressive day for the safety room, which is crazy to think about how, a month or two ago, we were all sitting around worried about the future of that room because we were fully expecting that to be the big issue position this year on the defense, but it was really quite impressive.
Then the final takeaway is Kobe Savage is an absolute monster, and I'm going to love seeing him play here.
Yeah, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. Hopefully he's going to be the next great K-State safety because I think this team does need to stand out in the safety room, and Kobe Savage is perfectly positioned to be that guy for at least the next 2 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for this upcoming season and next year as well, because I really, really liked what I saw from him in week 1. But we're going to get, again, like we've been saying over and over for the offense, we can say it for the defense too. We're going to have a better idea of what we're really getting next week.
Yep. And next week is your matchup against the Missouri Tigers, my childhood team.
This is the Ace revenge game.
Yeah. It's a cat fight.
Yeah.
It's going to be a cat fight.
I am very excited. The atmosphere was great this past week.
It's going to be nuts.
And this game was 50,400 and some change.
4,069. 469.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why I remember
50,400. I won't. And Missouri was announced as a sellout a month ago, so I'd imagine attendance is going to be in the 51 to 52 range. It's going to be up there in some of the biggest crowds to ever be at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, which it won't quite crack the top 10, I don't think, unless it really goes above and beyond what we're expecting. Yeah. But I mean, if we got 50,000 there for South Dakota, there's no doubt in my mind we will for Missouri. So I'm really, really excited for this game next week. It's an 11 a.m. Wish it was a night game just because it's going to be warm. But
it's going to be so hot.
Yeah, I'll live. It'll be fine.
I have sunscreen.
Yeah, it'll be okay. But yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow or contact the show, we are at Aggieville Alleycats on Twitter. That's capital A, and capital C in cats. If you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store and use the code KOFFACATS, KOFFACATS, to get $5 off your purchase of such designs as Neon Alleycats, Play Sandstorm Cowards, and Doomtank Clan. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.